I'm Heather Valgas for Performance Marketing Insider, and joining me today is Taylor Kennedy and Lauren Pitchford of MECLABS, which is home to Marketing Sherpa and Marketing Experiments. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hi.
Hey, Heather. Thanks for having us.
So you guys are really big into the optimization and the testing. You're kind of like the scientists of the internet, the scientists of internet marketing, basically. Can you explain to everyone a little more deeply what MECLABS is and Marketing Sherpa?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So MECLABS is we like to call ourselves an applied research laboratory. So what we do is we work with different, what we call them as research partners from around the world. These are big companies that we work with on a day-to-day basis, trying to streamline and optimize their marketing efforts online. So anything digital, we might have a hand in. One of our biggest things is online testing. So split testing through, A/B, multivariate, whatever formats work out there, including email testing as well.
Okay, cool. So we're going to focus a lot on email marketing today and conversions, improving people's results with their marketing, basically. And just to start off, I'm kind of curious how email marketing has changed in recent years.
Oh boy.
Because it seems like there's so much with social media, and some people don't even have an email list anymore, whereas a few years ago it was the thing to have.
Okay, well, I think email marketing, one of the reasons why it's not going anywhere anytime soon is just because of the ROI that you get there. So a lot of people talk about batch and blast being as effective as it is, because really there isn't. Once you've got an email created, once you've got a good list, you can send and you can see that ROI. Some people, you always want to be careful of coming off as a spammer and things like that, but email marketing still is an effective channel to participate in, definitely, despite all the recent despite the past couple of years, tons of apps coming out, different social media platforms, email is still effective for driving revenue.
Okay, so it's still effective. How effective is it compared to what it was maybe 5 years ago?
I mean, speaking on the efficacy of email 5 years ago, I mean, there are more companies now doing it than ever. I can't speak to specifically performance-wise whether email marketing was performing better 5 years ago than it is currently.
Okay. So what are your suggestions for getting past all that sludge in people's inboxes, for lack of a better term? I mean, we're overwhelmed by information. We're overwhelmed by email. How do we as marketers cut through that?
So I think one of the things that Flint says a lot that I think is a really good way to put it is, obviously we talk a lot about value proposition at MECLABS, and in your email in the inbox, your subject line is not really, you're not competing with your other competitors, like your direct competitors in someone's inbox. You're competing with the other emails in the inbox. So, people don't wake up in the morning and, get excited to check their email. They wake up in the morning to see what emails they can delete. So kind of, as an email marketer, your goal is to avoid the delete and actually get opened, and then from there to sell the click from the open to the landing page and slowly take people through your email funnel process. But I think it's just important to remember that your email may not be competing with your other direct competitors. You're competing with other emails in someone's inbox. So to make your email interesting and feeling like the reader is going to miss something if they don't open your email.
Right, okay. So let's start with the subject line, because that's the first thing, that's the step that actually gets people to read the email in the first place. What kinds of subject lines have you seen that really do invoke that curiosity and make people want to click?
Recently we've seen a couple pretty interesting ones. I think urgency is usually fairly effective. One we saw recently work was open before Christmas. And then the rest of the subject line, but the first thing was open before Christmas. We've seen things like the negative impact of not opening this email. Is your email marketing performing poorly or something like that? To instead of saying in a positive way, kind of putting fear, I guess, into someone's mind to get them to open the email. Those are a couple of really specific examples that we've seen that were pretty interesting recently.
So I think, what Lauren, some of the things she's hitting out, curiosity, urgency, those are things that can drive an open. You also have to be aware of how you drive click-through in your emails too. So if your subject line is completely all about curiosity and generating interest, then you might not actually get qualified traffic into your email. So you want to also kind of play that balance there and make sure that people know what you're talking about in your subject line, so that when they actually get into your email, they're prepared for what the content is.
Right, yeah, because I've seen a lot of emails that, sure, the subject line's intriguing and I open it, but then the email's not really congruent with what the subject line was, and so then, you know, that's just a big disappointment.
So that's, I think, the balance, like Taylor was saying, you need to strike, and that's one of the reasons why we tried testing and then also making sure you track, because we have seen that while your click-through from your email to your landing page may have decreased because you got so many people to open the email, overall you've got more people going to your landing page with that kind of vague subject line or something like that. Or it could have the opposite effect of no one likes your email and no one clicks through. So it's just important to measure to see which one is most effective for you. So it may not be it's not a hard one or the other that's going to be effective. It's just important to measure it and look at your numbers to see which one works the best.
Right. Okay. So once they're in the email, what's the best way to start off the content and kind of keep them reading?
So I think I can talk a little bit about this one. So I mean, one of our methodology here is that the point of the email is just to get the click. It's not, you're not doing a lot of extensive selling in the email itself. So
okay.
What we've seen, you know, from a messaging perspective, we always talk about, you know, attract action-oriented headlines. Where am I? What can I do here? Why should I do it? On a landing page. So in an email, you kind of want to take some of the similar methodology, but really try to connect that first piece of information they see with what's in the subject line of the email, so that it continues the motivation and propels them through the offer. Really simplicity, though. I mean, a lot of the testing I've seen lately can, depending on the industry you're in, you know, simplicity can be key. If it's e-commerce and you're really, you know, you're trying to sell products or you've got a sale, focus the email on that sale, what products are in the sale, and then the people that are actually motivated for that offer, they'll be the people that click through. Those are the people you're looking for.
Okay. There used to be a lot of talk about using first name tags and personalizing the email, both in the subject line and in the body of the email. Is that still effective?
I think we've seen it perform pretty well. We have recently run a few tests with personalization in the subject line, and it didn't have any effect. So it wasn't negative, but it didn't have a validated positive increase. But we have seen it be effective in the email body copy itself.
So yeah, that's the thing to remember too, is like everything, as you said, you know, where's email 5 years ago, where is it now? Everything's constantly changing. So maybe to the recipient, you know, 3 years ago or 5 years ago that's receiving all their email offers at work, that wasn't checking them on a mobile device, things have changed now. So maybe that personalization doesn't really hit the same note that it used to a couple of years ago. So I remember being involved in a personalization test maybe 2 years ago, where I believe it was a subject line where he's in the open rate. It did have a statistically significant effect in boosting the open rate. Now, if you were to rerun that test now, I'm not so sure.
Okay. So you mentioned that the main point is to get people to click, basically to get them out of the email. So how soon do you recommend putting a link where they can click and leave? Well, not leave, but go to where we want them to go.
So the way we kind of explain that is there's not really like a rule of thumb as to how many words before, or there's no really call to action above the fold. How we explain it is enough value or enough information to the point where they're ready to make that click. So, you know, if you're selling a complex product, you may need to give a little bit more explanation before you ask them to take the next step than say if you're selling, you know, gum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I think what Lauren's getting to too is the balance between quality and quantity. And we talk about what we call friction. It's a psychological resistance to a part of a process. So what she's talking about is essentially, if this person needs, say I'm selling a condominium, we're trying to get people on a wait list for a condo through an email. That's something that's going to take a little bit more information for someone to even be interested in clicking through. Versus I'm selling if I'm selling a pair of headphones or gum, something like that, that might be a full, you know, full HTML, fully clickable email, just a really splashy image, a line of copy, you know, focus on the incentive or the discount, and then you're off, right?
Yeah, okay. So I guess it's kind of a balance again between how much do we give away, because if you give them all the information, obviously they're not going to click because you've given them all. So I guess, is it a fine line again between you still want to keep that curiosity factor but give them enough stake?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we like to test is where the information goes, because one of the things we did see with a mortgage company that we worked with was when we put the interest rates in the email, no one clicked through, because that's what they were looking for. They were looking for the interest rates. So if we said find the interest rates on the next page, we got people to that next page. So we didn't want to give away the answer too soon. Whereas, for some other product, we may need to give more information up front in order to get them to understand what we're trying to do. So that's something we like to test a lot, is where that information goes in the process to find the best kind of path to take people down.
Right, okay. So, I mean, my first inclination would be to say low-ticket items, give them the price because that's your selling feature because it's on sale. High-ticket items, don't do that. But it sounds like it's actually a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think it can be, like what Lauren said, like the mortgage company, that's a great example. Another thing, say you had a holiday sale and you wanted to build up more anticipation or excitement around the holiday sale. The email might just be announcing the holiday sale and using that announcement to drive people to a landing page where actually all the pricing and more information is revealed about the products. So that's another example you could take to apply that.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of deciding what you want people to make their decision on. So if it is you want them to make the decision on price because it's such a low price, then put that up front. But for more high ticket items or something like that, you want to kind of get their interest first and let them say, oh, maybe I do want this product, and then hit them with the higher price. Because if they just see $300 for headphones, they may be like, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they see how headphones are first, and they're like, okay, let's see. So then you've got at least a little bit more of a chance for them to continue to sell them.
Right. Personally, like, for example, with e-commerce type emails, I find what works for me is if they send one and it'll be something like 25% off until midnight tonight, here's the coupon code, and then you go to their site. Have you done any testing to find out whether that sort of technique works? I mean, I can say for me it works, but in general, whether it works.
Have you done coupon code testing?
I don't know if it's coupon code specifically, but what Lauren was saying earlier about like the Christmas example. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we would call urgency. Mm-hmm. That's that time sensitivity factor. We call that urgency. And then the incentives, that 25% discount code. So we've definitely done testing around both of those two.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. Urgency, focus on like if price is what you're competing on, it does tend to work.
That test, yeah, that was a good example. It was a discount. It was actually a test we ran with our blog readers, and had people submit subject line ideas for the test that we ran for our own summit. And it was, I think, the early bird discount, or it was the last minute discount, one of our discounts that we put out, and some of them were focused on like the value of the summit, but the one that won was the open before Christmas, and it was talking about the incentives. So, I mean, that's just a single example, but it did prove effective in that case.
Yeah, I know there's some other, especially around the holidays with the e-commerce.
Yeah.
A technology company selling headphones, speakers, things like that, seeing some results in there as well.
Yeah, I can totally see the last minute discount working even better than the early bird, because with the early bird, people tend to still put it off. Well, right. I can get it later. Whereas the last minute, it's after they already have lost the early bird discount. They feel bad about that, and it's like, oh, I get another chance. So.
Right, it's the same thing, going back to making them kind of fearful of what's going to happen if they don't open this email. This is their last chance to get, a discount. So if they don't open it, then they've lost that chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you find that fear is more of an incentive than reward, basically?
Yeah,
it can be.
Yeah, I don't know if fear might not be the right word, but I guess like missing out, something like that. But I guess fear of missing out is a common thing.
Yeah, well, ultimately it all boils down to either fear of loss or anticipation of gain. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So loss is more powerful than gain, basically. I guess.
In some cases, yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the things, it's hard for us to say one thing is always better than the other. This is best practices, because we've seen best practices prove each other wrong in different scenarios. So it just depends on the company you're dealing with, the customers you're dealing with, the product you're dealing with, the time of the year. You know, there's a lot of different factors that go into, I guess, a best practice.